point 4, measures of variation. So we're going to talk about how, like on average, what is the variation in our data? What's the range? What's going on with data? Right? We talked about center. Now we're going to talk about measures of variation. How our data varies. Is the data really spread apart? Is it bunched all up in one spot? I think so. We won't be using any graphs. Well, there's one graph we'll look at, but it's not. So these are our objectives. We'll talk about the range, variance, standard deviation, empirical rule, Chebyshev theorem to interpret standard deviation, and we'll approximate the sample standard deviation for group data. And let's move on to exactly what's really going on, what's really happening. Hey, let's talk about the range. This is something you guys already know about. Right, the difference between your maximum and minimum data entries in the set, right? It tells you how far the data goes, right? What's the almost like what's the distance between your max and your min, right? Kind of thing. The data's got to be quantitative, though, right? I can't find the range of answers for blue. You know what I mean? Hey, what's your favorite color? What's the range of favorite colors? Who knows, right? So, need a pencil? Thank you. All right, ready? Oh, no. Next one. All right, so we're gonna find the range. We got a corporation, they hired 10 graduates. Here's the starting salaries, I believe in thousands of dollars, I hope. Because $41 isn't going to get you very far for the year.
That's if it was $41 an hour.
$41 an hour would be pretty cherry.
Yeah.
I mean, $37,000 a year doesn't really get you too much unless you're just yourself. You have a family for $37,000 to grow. All right, so we have here we go. Here's our example. So you want to get this one down, right? If you order the data, it's going to help you find the least and greatest salaries. There's your minimum. There's your maximum. And then there's your range. 47 minus 37. So your range is 10. So the range of starting salary is 10 or $10,000. That is some very useful information right there, right? Okay, so let's see what ourselves. Well, the most important part, interpreting this data in context. So that's nice. It's kind of the point of what we're doing. So, we don't have to arrange it. We can try to find our lowest value and our highest value. It looks like the lowest value is 23. Highest value, 58 it looks like, right? So this is our min. This is our maximum. And so max minus min is going to be equal to 58 minus 23. So our range will be equal to, that's the same thing as our range, right? Which is 58 minus 20 is 38. 38 minus 3 is 35. But 35, what is that? It doesn't mean really anything, 35. We got to put it in context, right? So, the range of starting salaries was $35,000. Next thing we're going to talk about is deviation, variance, and standard deviation. All right. So our deviation is going to be the difference between whatever data entry is, right? So if we're talking about salaries, if one of ours was $21,000, right? So we had a data entry of 21, and the mean of the data, we could take that 21. We would find the mean, right, first by adding them all, and then subtracting by the number of entries there, right? And then we could subtract that from that data value that we're talking about, right, that 21. And that would give us the deviation for that particular data point. Okay, so here's an example. The first part of finding the deviation. So we've got there we go, same thing, right? The graduates with the salary. First thing, in order to find the deviation, right? If we're going to be subtracting the mean from each of these data sets, we got to find the mean first, right? So this part is the first part is finding the mean, right? Hey, we're using this symbol mu, right, instead of x bar because this is all of them, right? This is all of the starting salaries, not a sample, but all of them. So it's good to point out that we're using this mu right here in this instead of x bar. So first we'll find the mean. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to determine the deviation for each data entry. And what this is doing is leading us up to finding our standard deviation. Okay. So we'll find all of our deviations and then we'll add them up. So down here we've got a calculator example of an output. We know how to make this output, right? So we're not going to do this one. We're going to move on to the end when we get to standard deviation. And then we're going to have our calculator do all of that. We're going to have it calculate the sum of the squares of our deviations and all of that stuff that we're going to get into right now. So we're going to breeze through this a bit. Because again, we're just finding these deviations, right? Again, so you have an example of this already. Now we're going to talk about standard deviation. So what are we going to do? We're going to take, so this right here, this x minus mu, right? That's your deviations that we were just finding right now. Big N, right? That's going to be the total number of our entries, right? So if we find this right here, this is called our variance, right? And this symbol, a new symbol, this symbol right here is called sigma. That is sigma. That's so sigma. So there's big sigma, right, which was for sum, and then this is our little sigma. So it's a lowercase s actually. And we are going to get our calculators to run this calculation for us here in just a moment. Well, let's get these formulas down first. So now we're going to get out our calculators. We're going to use our calculators to do some work. So and just looking at this, you guys have all these down. So let's talk about these in words. We're going to find this is the mean of a population data set. Here's our deviation. This is the square of each deviation. We're going to add them all up to get the sum of the squares, and then we'll divide by n, we'll get the variance. When we take the square root of all that stuff, that gives us our standard deviation. You guys have all these formulas written down. Let's put them all together. Actually, now that you've seen them, we'll put it all together and get a standard deviation. We'll get our calculator to output all of these things for us. Okay. So here we go. We have these 10 graduate salaries. So let's go ahead and put this stuff into our handy dandy calculator. So, you can get out your calculator from the home screen. Let's make a new document. Number 1. We're going to add a listen spreadsheet. Pretty much we're going to be doing this every time we have a bunch of numbers, right? We're going to add a listen spreadsheet. We're going to go up here and give it a name. We'll call it salary or money or yeah. Call it whatever you want. Yeah, 100 bands? I don't know, that's weird. Sorry. Alright. And now we'll enter these data points in there. So there they are. Let's get them in there. They do not, but if you put them in your calculator in order, or, oh, you mean like they don't have to be in ascending order. No, you just put them in just like that.
Wait, so when we type salary in, what do we
Enter, or you can press down. Whoa, what was that? Oh, that's weird. That looks like my phone. I did get it fixed. That was weird. Oh no, I forgot to call my son.
How is he? I said he went home sick yesterday.
I don't know. He puked a bunch. A headache. He doesn't have a fever though, but he's still feeling sick. So probably not food poisoning. Get over that pretty quick. So yeah. What's up? Oh, you put it in the Oh, don't save it. You can hit no. If it asks you to save, you can say no. I will come get that in there in a second. Let's see. What's up? Why is it not? Yeah, there you go. Now go there and go underneath first. Whatever you want. Whatever you want. Able to enter the data in there. Should look a little something like that. And now we want to find Alright, so you should have this. I obviously forgot to press pause while we were working on this, but okay. So now we need to make some calculations, right? So in our document, we're going to have to insert a calculator page in order to make these calculations. So I'm going to hit Doc, Insert, or number 4, and I'm going to put in a calculator. Remember, when we're calculating values for statistics, we are most likely going to use statistics here. So we hit Menu, and then we'll use statistics. The only other one we'll use probably will be probability, but we're not there yet. So statistics, we'll choose number 1 for stat calculations. And we want 1 variable statistics. We're always gonna we're gonna go with just 1 list, right? For now, not always, but so okay, we'll say 1 list. He wants to know, hey, where do you want this data to come from? And if you hit your middle button there, it knows that within this document you've already named a set of data, salary. And so we'll go down and we'll choose salary, and then that's the only thing we're going to change on this page. We'll go all the way down, we'll hit OK. And there it is. So now we've looked at this list of numbers before, But now we've got to talk about what we can talk about really what almost all of these things are in this thing. Let's talk about what these are. As we've discussed before, that's your mean, right? So there's our mean. We knew that, right? We've already calculated that ahead of time. So let's find, whoops, I gotta help. So our standard deviation, in this case, we're looking at this one, standard deviation of x, right? So we want just the standard deviation of our values, right? So this is actually s sub x, okay. Standard deviation of whatever data points we put in there are. There. All right, and that's our total number of data entries. And then down here, you can see we were calculating these. Remember, we wanted the sum of all the squares, or sum of the squares of the deviations, right? That's what this is. Sum of the squares of the deviation. So we calculated these deviations as x minus x bar, right? And then they've done each one for all 10 entries, then squared them and add them all up. So there it is. The main values that we'll be using from this so far are going to be the mean. So the mean, that x bar, we'll be using this sx, which is our standard deviation. So our standard deviation is 3.13581. If we're going to round it, 3.136. And we know median, and we'll wind up talking about all of these things, the Q1, Q3, and all that sort of stuff. Right? But it also figures out what your maximum value is, figures out what your minimum value is. Really, everything we need is here, right? We'll start interpreting standard deviation here in a moment.